I'm here today with Glenys Nellist. Glenys is the author of multiple children's books, including the best-selling "'Twas the Evening of Christmas" and "The Wonder That Is You." Also 5 popular series: Love Letters from God, Snuggle Time, "'Twas", Good News, and Little Mole. Her writing reflects a deep passion for helping children discover joy and hope in the world. Her latest book is Baptized in the Water: Becoming a Member of God's Family. Glenys was born and raised in a little village in northern England, but now lives in Michigan with her husband, David. I should also mention that Glenys has spoken at several of our writers' conferences, and I've always greatly appreciate collaborating with her. So, Glenys, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, of course. It's always a joy, Brian. Thanks for inviting me.
I should also mention Glenys's website, too, glenysnellist.com. And let me spell that for you, GLENYSNELLIST.com.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, it's an unusual name, but it's good for an author because I'm the only Glenys Nellist, I think, in the whole world.
Exactly. Isn't it funny how, when you're young and you have a really unique name, you hate it, right?
Right.
But then, when it's this kind of a situation, as you said, the uniqueness is very valuable.
Right, I know.
So before we start talking about, your books, can you share with folks a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, of course. Well, I've always loved writing. I was a teacher in England. I taught elementary school kids, and I've always loved to write. I remember writing like poems for my class, or I would write songs, using nursery rhymes, to accompany whatever themes we were doing. So it's always been part of me. But it wasn't until we came to the United States in 2000 I stepped out of teaching and into children's ministry. And part of what I did was I wrote curriculum for our little church because it was expensive. So I thought I'll just write it myself. And it was rewriting the great stories of the Bible. I just fell in love with it and found there's always a new way to tell the old stories. And that led to my first book being published in 2014, which was called Love Letters from God. And Brian, I thought, woohoo, I've arrived. I'm an author. How amazing is that? It was a dream come true. And I don't know, it was like a big snowball that started rolling, and that book, Love Letters from God, turned into a series of 4, and then I started writing little board books, and then I became published with all those early books published with Zonda Kids, and then I became published with Our Daily Bread, and then Beaming Books, and soon to be published with Paraclete. So it's an amazing dream, and it all started for me by attending a writers' conference. So I'm a huge advocate for attending writers' conferences, and I know we have one coming up soon, May the 9th to the 13th. So yes, I would encourage anybody listening in to check that out, Writing for Your Life. And it's for any writer, whether you write for children or adults, but it's your opportunity to connect with a publisher or an agent, which is how I got into writing. But I remember David saying to me, that's my husband, once, he said, in your wildest dreams, how many books do you think you could publish? This was in 2014 when I had my first one. I'm like, I don't know, maybe 5, because 5 seemed like impossible. And he said, well, that's not a wild dream. I'm like, maybe 10 or 20, I don't know. And then I said 30 would be unbelievable. And this year I'll publish my 30th book, and it's, wow. I know. And it's like, thank you, God, for giving me the gift and calling me on this journey. And it sounds a bit cheesy, but I really feel like God is the author and I'm along for the ride. When I sit to write, sometimes I think, oh my goodness, where did that come from? And so, yeah, it's a huge blessing for me to be on this journey.
Yeah. Well, I think you're a conduit that's being utilized very well.
Yeah, I'm just a vessel. Let's do this. I'm not getting any younger, so let's get these books out, you know.
Well, that's just amazing. 30 is just an amazing number. And you've got plenty more in you too, beyond that. So I know.
I do. So that's why I'm like, let's do this thing.
Sure, sure. So, well, let's talk about the new book. I mentioned that the title is Baptized in the Water, Becoming a Member of God's Family. So what was the inspiration behind creating that?
Well, Brian, aren't we Christians great at finding things that divide us? And you know,
Yes.
it's a sad reality. There are so many issues that divide not just denominations, but within a denomination. And I don't think it should be that way. And so my vision for this book, Baptized in the Water, which look at the cover, it's
It's
so,
beautiful.
I can't take any credit for it, but
Well, it's very
I,
colorful and diverse, and I just love it.
I know. My illustrator, Anna Kazemi, I know we can talk about her in a minute, but she really brought my words to life. My inspiration was, could I write a book about baptism, which could potentially be a divisive issue? You know, there are so many different ways to be baptized. You can be sprinkled or dunked, or you can get the water poured on you. You can get baptized in a church with a little font or a huge font, or in a lake or a river or an ocean. You can be baptized as a baby or a child, a youth or an adult. But really, none of those things matter, do they? When you really think about baptism, baptism is just this mysterious, wonderful, free gift where the Holy Spirit dances and we celebrate that we are part of one family. And so that was my inspiration. Could I write a book that would celebrate our oneness in baptism and not worry about the details?
Good, good. Well, I really applaud you for that goal, for just the reasons that you described.
Well, thanks.
Now, the book is dedicated to your sister. Can you tell us why that's the case?
Yeah, well, as soon as I started to write this book, I knew it would be dedicated to my older sister. She's a couple of years older than me. Her name's Pauline. She lives in England. She just actually, a second career, she just got commissioned as a pastor in England.
Wow.
I know. I'm so super proud of her. But was it 2015? Pauline and I went to the Holy Land together. My husband arranges tours to Israel, and so we met. I flew from Michigan, she flew from England, and we met in Tel Aviv, and she was part of our 2-week Holy Land tour. And the big highlight for us and the event we always remember is when we held hands and stepped into the River Jordan together and remembered our baptism. Yeah, it was
That had to
amazing.
be quite an experience.
Oh my gosh, it was, yeah, as I'm talking about it, I'm getting goosebumps. It was a sunny day, and my husband was assisting with the baptisms with another pastor. And so, yeah, we just held hands, stepped into the water. It's cold. I don't know if you've ever
No, I
been
haven't.
Well, it's cold, and there are catfish in the river.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can see them. So it's a bit different, but and so we held hands together, Pauline and I, and we just fell back in the water.
Oh,
and we
goodness.
Yeah, and so pastor either side of us, and it's like a trust ball, you know, you go back.
Sure.
And then we were lifted out of the water, and I just turned to her and we hugged, and it was and Brian, get this, I am not lying. 2 white doves flew over. I'm not kidding you.
Wow.
And it's probably a commercial thing, right? The people that, that organize those baptisms, they probably have doves in cages or whatever. And they let them fly over the river. I don't know. But it was such a spiritual moment. And so, yeah, the book is dedicated to her. I don't know. I
saw that picture in there. Yes.
Right. That's me and my sister just coming out of the River Jordan. And so I just knew straight away, I have to dedicate this book to her. And it's wonderful, Brian, because I have three wonderful sisters, but this one, Pauline, she always seems to have been by my side for sacred moments. We were 10 and 12 when we held hands and stepped up to the altar in a little church in England and gave our lives to Jesus, you know. A woman preacher who put her hands on our head, and I can't remember what she said, but yeah, so it just seemed fitting. You know, we were girls then, and now we're grandmas, but we're stepping up, you know, to say we're here, God, and use us, you know. So yeah.
Wow. Well, that's so wonderful. I mean, that you guys can share, you know, this moment, you know, yet another moment, right? You know, that is representing your togetherness and your experiences together, and
right,
very cool.
Right, yeah.
So, you know, you showed the cover there. You know, the illustrations, obviously, throughout the book are really outstanding. Is this an illustrator that you worked with before?
No, Anna Cazzini, I think she's Italian. You know, usually when you are traditionally published, as I am, you don't really get a say in the illustrations. Now, because I'm kind of established, the publisher will say to me, you know, sometimes they'll say, we have these three choices. Do you have a preference? You know, they usually show me the illustrations beforehand so that I can have a little input. But by and large, that's not my job. You know, I write the words and then I pray, like, please let this illustrator do a good job. And she really did. So I'll just give you a little peek at some of them. It begins with Jesus' baptism in the River Jordan, and there's the white dove that I'm sure was not let out of a cage on that day. And then it just talks about how, as a result of Jesus' baptism, Christians all around the world participate too in that ceremony. And I love the way a lot of the pages have like this water flowing in the background. Yes. So it's a combination of prose and a little bit of poetry, which is how I like to write. So baptized in the water, a gift for me and you, a sign that we belong to God who makes us clean and new. Yeah, so, and then it goes through the different ways to be baptized. Whether, you know, you're a baby or you choose it for yourself. Can I show you my favorite spread?
Sure, please.
Well, this is a really sweet one, in the lake. But my favorite one, I think it's the next page. Yeah, right here. So she just captured all the different ways to be baptized. Nice. And I really love that picture right there. Yeah.
Well, that's nice that those four different ways are all in the same, you know, 2 pages there. That
right. Yeah, I really like the way she did that.
Yeah. And back to your original point about kind of unifying the theme, you know, and celebrating the differences, not arguing about the differences.
That's right. Yeah, because that's just like the family of God, isn't it? We're all different. We all look different. We all think different things, but we're all one family.
Yes. Very, very great way to do that.
Thank you.
So there's also like a downloadable activity guide, right, that goes along with this?
Yeah, that's something I love to do. You know, back to my teacher days, I like to provide free resources so that children's ministers can utilize the book when they're teaching about baptisms. Yeah, so I mean, I hope that the book will be a lovely gift for parents or grandparents to buy, but also that it will be used by people in children's ministry. So yeah, it's a free downloadable activity guide. It's got these cute things that you can print. These are book plates that I signed. These are self-adhesive ones that I mail out free to people. But these are in the activity guide along with the little bookmarks. These are designed so that you can put a ribbon through, laminate them. I would laminate them, and then you can fill in the details on the back. There's a space for, yeah, so they're like a commemorative bookmark. So after you fill it in and laminate it, then you can thread a ribbon through. So those are in the activity guide. There's tips for talking to children, talking with children about baptism. There's a couple of activities like a crossword and a word search, and there are colouring sheets. So that's a nice free resource that anybody can use. It's on my website under free resources.
Okay. You always do such a good job of that, of those kinds of things to go with your books, which I think is really, life-giving and important.
Yeah, and they're fun, that they're not too hard for me to do. It's kind of fun seeing what we can create together. So I write it all, and then in this case, Zonda Kids, they make it all look beautiful. So.
So the book's been available for only a couple of weeks or so? How's it?
Yeah, it released April the 21st. I think it's doing well. I hope it's doing well. I'm reading some wonderful reviews, on Amazon and other sites. The best part is when I hear personal stories from people who are using the book. And so just this past weekend, a lady who I actually met on that Israel trip, she lives in Michigan, but she came with us to the Holy Land. And she reached out and said, my great niece is being baptized this weekend. How can I get a signed copy? So I sent her one of the book plates and the bookmark, and then she bought the book. And there's a special place in the book where that book plate is designed to go. There's a presentation page right at the front that you can fill in. But when I send the book plate, they are designed to see right like underneath it.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so it makes it a nice gift. So I'd sent her that. Well, then just Sunday, she messaged me with photographs and said, here's Jillian being baptized. And she took her book up to the, yeah, she was 6 years old. And she was given the book, and she took it up with her to like the baptistry. She was baptized by full immersion. And she sent me these wonderful pictures. And so, yeah, I know that is a huge blessing for me. And then her mum messaged me that night and said, we read the book before bedtime and Jillian felt so special, So, yeah, I just hope that for children like Jillian or whoever buys the book, I just hope it will be a reminder for them of that wonderful special day when they were baptized,
Yes. Well, that does help them make it special, without doubt.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're going to get more pictures or messages about people's experiences like that.
I hope so, because as an author, you rarely get a glimpse, really. I mean, you can read wonderful reviews, which are always great, but you rarely get a glimpse at how your words are personally impacted the life of a child. And so when you do, it's precious.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So are you finding that, given where we are in the pandemic, that you're able to do more in-person events now or not?
Yes, I've just started doing in-person events again, and I love to do school visits, and I did quite a few of those over Easter, and it was kind of strange at first because, after, I don't know, more than 2 years, I wondered, have I forgotten? How do I do this again? But then once you get in the classroom or the bookstore and you start reading and you have that interaction with kids, it all comes back. And so that's a wonderful part of what I do.
Well, I'm glad you're able to again.
Yeah, and also, Brian, really though, the pandemic, I'm also continuing to do Zoom visits for schools and churches who are, not within my traveling reach.
Right.
And really and truly, without the pandemic, I would never be doing those.
Huh. Isn't it
So
amazing, that's one of the most huge byproducts, of
yes,
obviously what was a very bad situation, but
right.
just the fact that it spurred so much adoption of this tool that,
Yeah,
breaks down the geographic barriers, which I think is really a big deal.
I know. It's amazing and wonderful. And yeah, that something positive came out from such a bad and awful situation. Yeah, the pandemic will go away, but Zoom is here to stay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So you kind of touched on a little bit earlier that you've got some additional books coming out. Can you talk about some of them yet or not?
I can, yeah, sure, and I love to. Well, first of all, for this book, Baptized in the Water, what is on the back burner right now is I'm working on a similar book, which is tentatively called Gathered at the Table, and that I hope will be a celebration of communion in all its varying aspects. But
Nice.
I haven't signed the contract for that yet, so.
That's a great idea, though.
Well, I think it's just another thing that we Christians find to disagree over when really the one important thing is that in communion we remember Jesus, But anyway, as I say, I haven't. That's a hopeful thing right now. But my next book releases in July, and it's the third in the Little Mole series. If you know our Little Mole,
Sure.
published with Beaming Books, there was Little Mole Finds Hope, and then Little Mole's Christmas Gift. Well, now our little friend is going to school. He's starting kindergarten, and he's all nervous because he doesn't know his ABCs, and he doesn't feel like he's good at anything. Well, he discovers that he has his own gifts along with everyone else in the kindergarten class. So,
oh, that's wonderful.
I know, that's Little Mole Goes to School, releasing around the 25th of July, I think.
Well, that's
and then,
perfect timing, I hope.
I hope so too. I'm looking forward to reading that in preschools and kindergartens. Then in early fall, I think it's October, I've got 2 little board books coming out to join the Good News series with Our Daily Bread. That's Good News, God Loves Me, and Good News, It's Creation. So written in rhyme for little people.
Wow.
And then my last book for this year will be, oh my gosh, I think it might be the 7th in the Snuggle Time series. And again, a little board book, and it's called Snuggle Time Love. And that one in rhyme explores, the passage in Corinthians, love is patient, love is kind. It takes those attributes of love and explores them for little children. Yeah, so I have a busy year.
That's at least 5 right now. Did you have one that released earlier this year too?
Yes, that was Snuggle Time Easter Stories.
That's what I thought.
So 6 books.
6. I mean, is that a pace? I mean, that's just incredible. I mean, is that a pace you think you can keep up, or is that a one-shot deal?
Well, it's hard, but it's also a lot of fun, and it's very exciting, and it keeps me busy. 6 would really be the maximum I could ever do in 1 year. But yeah, it's just wonderful, and I'm so very grateful to my publishers that they agreed to work with me to have a shorter time between releases so that I can get my books out, because I work hard for them and they work hard for me. So yeah, next year it'll be a bit more restful. I think I've only got 4.
Well, just the process of releasing a book, right? Now, all the things like, this and the visits and everything that you go through, that's a lot of work. Not to mention the writing of it, but I mean, just the launch part of it, it takes off a lot of effort.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, but I really enjoy most of it. Sometimes I think, oh my gosh, I can't do one more thing, but I'm a grandma. I work from home. My grandkids are not nearby, so I don't get to spend a lot of time with them. I'm quite involved in our local church where my husband's the pastor, but beyond that, I have the time and the energy still to do what I need to do. So I just work hard because I want to get my books out there in the world. I want to give children hope, and I want them to know who God is. And so it's just a wonderful blessing for me to be part of it.
Well, it goes both ways. I mean, you're a wonderful blessing for everyone else, that gets to take advantage of your work and your conduit, as we discussed earlier.
Oh, thank you.
Well, and so it's just thrilling to watch. I think you're really quite a role model, quite frankly, for other authors to emulate.
Well, I like to encourage other authors, other writers, because did I ever dream I would be in this position? No, never, and so we just need to work hard at what God makes us good at. This is what I tell kids, when I go in school, that we're all good at different things, and just try and figure out what God made you good at and work hard at it, and you never know.
Good. Well, as Glenys mentioned, she's going to be presenting at one of our online Writing for Your Life conferences next week. Do you want to give folks just a quick preview of what you're going to be talking about?
Sure, and I'm just one of many wonderful presenters at the conference. I'm really looking forward to hearing Barbara Brown Taylor. I haven't heard her before, so that will be a joy for me. And I know Jennifer Grant, my friend and colleague. She's always wonderful. My presentation will be about marketing your children's book, and this time, I know at the last conference, I think in the fall, I presented on marketing your children's book, but that was really just the basics. Like, what's the absolute basic that we need to do to build a platform? And this one really takes a deep dive into, I guess, 3 areas. One is, what's a launch team? How do I run a launch team? What are some best practices for my launch team? And then, how do I partner with bookstores, not just local, but anywhere? And how do I partner with local schools? And so, because that's something I've just, in my journey, those 3 things. I mean, that first book, Brian, in 2014, I didn't have a launch team. My book went out to lots of influencers. I didn't even know what an influencer was. And we weren't part of a team. Now I would never launch a book without a team. And so I talk about that, whether you're self-publishing or traditionally published, best practices for a launch team. And then again, connecting with bookstores and schools. So yeah, it's a deep dive into those areas.
That's going to be really helpful for people. And, as you well know, my belief about all of this is that the marketing side of it is at least as important as the writing side of it these days.
Yeah, I know. And I think at the end of my presentation, I give a lot of information, and I know it can be a bit overwhelming, but I try, sometimes my husband says, "What are you doing today?" I say, "Marketing." And he says, "Don't forget to write," I do think it's important. You have to find that balance between leaving room for your creative side. My final tip in that presentation is always write another book. The best way to market your first book is write a second, because then it will draw attention to what you've done previously. Excellent. So yeah, you definitely have to find that balance. But I think if you can enjoy marketing, if you can enjoy doing what you do, that's half the battle.
Well, that's the thing, like we use the word marketing, but I mean, the things you talk about, doing school visits, or bookstore, tours and things like that. Those are fun, right?
Yeah.
It's not like it's some negative thing, right? And
right.
The same with, your launch team or your interactions with other folks. I mean, marketing in itself is a very creative practice. It needs to be, right? I mean, so I hope people are beginning to, get the flavor that it's not something to be dreaded.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So again, the title of the book is Baptized in the Water, Becoming a Member of God's Family. You can learn more about it at glenysnellist.com. Glenys, again, congratulations on another great book, and all the work that you've done. It's just so impressive and so wonderful to see.
Oh, thank you so much, Brian, for having me.
Thank you so much.